Hi, I am here to do a short lecture on intersectionality. I'm starting a class with this because I feel like it's a very important concept that we need to apply throughout all of our readings and all of our discussions in this class. This class mostly focuses on the oppression or the stereotypes or the impact of gender bias on females in our society. And so, what I want to go over briefly with you in this lecture is the idea of the different intersections of oppression or the ways that women can be impacted in a variety of aspects, not just by being female. But first, I want to go into this. So, it seems pretty appropriate that political and social events continue to ratify our nation's tolerance of racism, bigotry, xenophobia, and the abject disrespect for women. Because that's what we're kind of talking about in a lot of our subject matter in this class, the disrespect for women and the impact that has on women. And so the abject disrespect of women is misogyny. So misogyny is dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. And I'm not trying to be like all way overboard here, but just know that I believe firmly that there's so many messages that females are given from the get-go of being raised to be considered as a lesser than importance of men and boys. That I didn't say that very well, did I? But the idea is that in our society, males are valued more than females. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about today. I like this quote: the misogyny apocalypse turns out being white and male counts for more than intelligence, grace, or decency. It was unimaginable that America would self-destruct rather than elect a female president, but that's what happened. I'm just kind of framing this in, an event, a couple of events in our society. So 2008, pretty historic event happened. Obama wins the presidency, shattering a racial barrier. He's voted in as president. So we have a big yes for Obama, which fabulous president, right? So a big yes for Obama, but a big no for Hillary Clinton. So while race became negotiable, so race kind of like, okay, we can get beyond a white man maybe, and so we'll allow Obama to be elected. So race became negotiable in 2008, but gender off the table. So some people think, okay, so part of that has to be with the history of the right to vote in the United States, right? So 1789. The first presidential election, because, 1776, we were born a new nation. So first presidential election, voters had to be white male landowners over the age of 21. And then quite a ways down, 1870, the 15th Amendment is passed, and the right to vote is guaranteed to all men, regardless of race or color or being enslaved and all of that. But I have to add that even though 1870, the right for men of color, specifically really black men, happened, but all sorts of stuff happened to try to prevent them from really securing the vote until about 1965, to be honest with you. So then in 1920, the 19th Amendment is passed, granting women the right to vote. And again, lots of times this was easier for white women, not so easy for women who were not white. So I'm not saying like it was a shoo-in, but this is kind of the sequence of events that happened in terms of history. So, because men of color were the second social identity group granted the right to vote, maybe that's why it was easier to vote for a black president that is male and not a female of any sort. So, again, Obama totally represented progress for everybody. But his presence as commander-in-chief still upheld a particular gendered identity, i.e. male, right? So in this case, misogyny, the abject disrespect for women totally held and ruled racism. Maybe just a really small idea here, because I do want to totally I guess I want to totally also um, be really careful about how I do all this stuff. And if we look at the whole kind of, you know, hierarchy of our genders, of men and women and race and all that, Malcolm X, fabulous African American human rights activist who was really pivotal to the civil rights movement until his assassination in 1965. He said this: the most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. So I'm certainly not trying to suggest that. I don't. Let me just keep going. So that's the whole idea of intersectionality that we have. If we're addressing females or women, there is a hierarchy of, you know, who has it easier, right? So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. So 2012, Obama continued with his presidency, right? Then we have 2017, and we get boom, chakalaka, boom. So Donald Trump, again, that a gendered identity, right? We get a yes there, and we get another no for Hillary Clinton for all sorts of reasons. But I'm really kind of trying to frame this within the idea of like what we will do in terms of voting for. Okay, yeah. So 2021, we get a strong yes, and then we get a no for Amy, a no for Elizabeth, a no for Kamala, and we're back to this, right? So the idea that we're really looking at a gender bias, we're really looking at misogyny, we're really looking at that we rank males and females pretty differently in our society, and that is still hasn't gone away, right? So we know gender bias prevails, right? It's there that we have all male presidents until maybe pretty soon, who knows? And so gender is constructed by culture and society, right? So is gender bias constructed by culture and society. So we just build that up and we decide where to put it. I can I tell you that when I do these lectures, they're a lot for me too. So I kind of learn a lot and I'm trying to suss out my ideas of everything. So that's how I kind of do this. So why? So why did this happen? A majority of white women, 53% voted for Trump. This oft-repeated data point tends to disappear from coverage of the Women's March and the Me Too campaign. So this is a quote by Daniels from 2018. So she goes on to say, instead, feel-good accounts of the resistance repeat a cheery narrative about women in pink hats I like this part so much, as a fixed biological category of people who all experience the world in the same way and uniformly hold center-left political views. So right now, so what we're looking at is that people were shocked. A lot of us were shocked when Hillary Clinton didn't get in because there was going to be so many women who voted, but it didn't matter because that there are women, again, on the intersectional scale and all that. There's all sorts of different variances, right? So this fixed biological category of women who all experience the world the same way weren't experiencing it in the same way. So misogyny rules still. It still rules. It's women are impacted by being compared to being less than men, and and we soak it in, right? There's like the last lecture about that. If men are the scale of excellence, women can never achieve that, and we're there. And so was I, as a white woman, was I like, oh yeah, we're kind of all the same, right? We're all the same, but there's different issues, and that's what intersectionality is all about, right? So yeah, we could be kind of feminist, or we could be like, leaning towards like wanting equal and rights for women and men, but had I've been practicing mostly white feminism, not thinking about things from an intersectional standpoint, not breaking it down further than that. Yeah, we're all women and we've all been done wrong too, right? We've been done wrong too, but as a white feminist, it's a set of beliefs that allows for the exclusion of issues that specifically affect women of color, right? So, but we don't see that. It's like kind of one size fits all feminism, where middle class white women are the mold that others must fit. So, I mean, we kind of do that. We do that with a lot of things, right? And so, while we're not just trying to practice it with evil intents, what happens is that when you have a dominant culture model, it's hard to look beyond that. And we've been all raised with that. No excuses, but then that makes some of us with a white standpoint harder to see how other women are being oppressed. And that's where intersectionality comes into, is that we can really kind of suss things out a little bit more. So our dominant culture, basically is male, white, heterosexual, Christian, temporarily able-bodied, youthful, and has access to wealth and resources. So not trying to diss any categories of people, but the deal is that we've kind of run on, our founding forefathers, and we've run on this kind of patriarchal white standard, and where you're measured to be more successful if you have all these attributes that I listed. And so the deal is that gender bias impacts all women, right? All women. But whiteness definitely provides a definite advantage for some of us, right? And so, in the words of Patricia Hill Collins' fabulous Black feminist intellect, white women are penalized by their gender, but privileged by their race. So I think that's a really an important thing, and it helps us when we look through an intersectional lens at the different impact that the white dominant culture has over all of our society. And we're going to be looking at a lot of articles that kind of reflect, specifically in education, pretty much, that reflect some of the impact for varying citizens in our society, right? So all these waves of feminism, there's like been 3 major waves. Have they all been white centric? Yeah, they have. So the first wave of feminism was mostly about getting the right to vote, right? Trying to just like opening up opportunities for women, like, yeah, we're here too, but a real push on the right to vote. The problem was with that is that it turned into kind of more of just a white women's movement. And even though tons of women of color, like there's some really famous ones like Sojourner Truth, big part of the movement to get the right to vote, and just famous speech, Ain't I a Woman Too, which I will link for sure, or we'll talk about it in class again. Just big, important things. But what happened was, to try to, we got to get this vote, so we don't want to have distractions. So, women of color get in the back. So, we got to get this vote. So second wave feminism, kind of a similar thing happened where there's some really big issues, but a lot of those issues were middle class, like, I want to work, I don't want to just stay at home. Well, Black women have been and women of color have been in the workforce forever. So again, like the concerns seem to be mostly around white middle class women, and what was happening as well was that a lot of times women of color, specifically Black women, were not invited to the table, even they were doing incredibly important things for the movement, right? So again, we just get this whole idea that we're not looking at women from an intersectional lens. We're not considering that white women have this issues of, yeah, I'm bored at home, and I want a job and don't just want to look at the paint on the wall, where, other things were happening for women of color, like, yeah, pay me equal pay and all sorts of things, right? So then we're kind of in the third wave, or maybe it's the fourth wave of kind of feminism now, where we're really hopefully looking at the idea that we have to fold in all women across the spectrum of gender and stuff, all women, all people who identify as female. We need to look at everyone. And so that supposedly is what's happening with the third wave. Is it's we're going to focus more on making sure that we're looking at all women, and we're looking at it from an intersectional lens. So intersectionality, coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw way back in the late 1980s. She was a lawyer. She was a lawyer, and she was working a lot with black women in um, prison, and wondering like, what's going on with why they're always. I'm sorry, you know what? I'm really distracted because I have a typo in here. So I have black women, but black's not. It's not capitalized, so it's really bothering me. Just to tell you the truth, I'm so sorry. That's disrespectful, and I wish it was capitalized. But anyway, she was writing a paper about like what's going on. There's so many black women specifically in prison that just seemed like they go from home to school to prison, and like what's going on, and like we need to look at this more, and we can't just look at it just from a women's perspective in general, and because that rule of thumb was white middle class women, right? We can't do that. And so Audre Lorde said it so well. There's not a single issue struggle, because there's so many facets to everybody, right? So we can't just look at women are oppressed. We have to look at black woman, black disabled, Latino. We have to look at it from all sorts of ways. We have to really dig in and look at this so that it makes sense, so that it works for all women. And Crenshaw was saying that intersectionality is the view that women experience oppression in varying configurations and in varying degrees of intensity. So it can be all sorts of stuff, right? Oppression is like it's connected, and it just kind of depends on where you're at in the whole scale of things, right? Your race, your gender, your class, your ability, your sexuality, your religion, all that stuff all that has to be factored in, right? So intersectionality really, really helped us see that more. Really helped us see now that we can't just talk about women. We can't just talk about women, because a lot of times when you just talk about women, the scale, the rule of thumb is white women, and intersectionality makes us realize that we got to look at all women, and the lives of all women matter, right? And so it's really a cool tool, I think. And it was first used for just primarily for black women, and it's spread out more. So primarily looking at gender and race, and Crenshaw added to the whole thing in 2015 and talked more about sexism and class oppression and transphobia and ableism and more. So all that can be kind of stirred into the pot for a way to look at things as well. It's all pretty important. Intersectionality has given many advocates a way to frame their circumstances and to fight for their visibility, inclusion. So that's really important, right? It's like, here I am as a black woman, or here I am as a Muslim American woman, like here I am, and so all of that is so important so that we can see the varying levels of oppression and how we can help those women that are oppressed more. Importantly, for me, intersectionality shows how some identities result in privilege and more opportunities, right? So for me, with a standpoint as quite frankly a white supremacist, right? Just because that's how I was raised, and I fight it and working on it so diligently. Intersectionality helps me. It gives me like more of a toehold, right, on how to like know where I am versus where other people, and in this class specifically women, are in the world, so that I can work on my stuff. So that's cool. So for example, a white woman living with a disability will experience sexism and ableism. So bad stuff, right? But then when we go into it intersectionally a little bit more, a black woman living with a disability will experience the same sexism and ableism, and racism too. So both of these women have a disability, but they have different experiences due to those intersecting identities. Really important concept. So I wanted just to give you a quick rundown on my perspective of it, and just as an intro to this class, because I think that is something we're going to be looking at in all of the articles that we're reading, and a lot of the little TED Talks and a couple of other things that we're doing in here. So I think it's important, and I didn't mean to go on, but I did. So I'll go. So, intersectionality demands that we deliberately look within ourselves at the places where we don't understand and where we feel challenged. We must take upon ourselves the desire to learn about issues and identities that do not impact us personally. That, I think, is for sure for somebody like me. So, thus, taking up the difficult work of investigating our own privilege is key to intersectional feminism. And some of us are really in that space to be able to do that, right? We're there. So, understanding intersectionality, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And understanding misogyny, boom, boom, boom. They kind of go hand in hand with a lot of what we're doing in this class. So, speaking of elections, is it do-over time? Do-over is an attempt or opportunity to do something different. So, commander-in-chief is a particular gendered identity, but maybe not this time. And thanks, Dr. Crenshaw, for a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant tool that you have put forth for us. Okay, and thank you for listening.